Hello and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing. This is a show where I chat with business owners and leaders about their marketing mistakes, mishaps, and things that just didn't quite go as planned in their marketing. But most importantly, we share the lessons learned with you. I'm your host, I'm Christy Mitchell. I'm a marketing strategist, and I work with mission-driven, client-centered service providers who have relied on referrals and word of mouth to build their business. And they know in order to have a bigger impact and to grow for the future, they need to finally think more strategically about their marketing. Today, I am so excited to welcome Beth Knaus to the show. Beth is an award-winning copywriter, brand messaging consultant, and CEO of That's a Spade Copywriting Services. She works with confident entrepreneurs who know they are good at what they do, but they don't know how to use their unique voice to stand out with their written and verbal communications. Through strategy calls and an in-depth discovery process, she clarifies their authentic message and applies it to the writing she crafts for them, so they can attract and work with the clients they can serve best. She offers done-for-you copywriting, one-on-one collaborative sessions, messaging development, and workshops to get your writing done in the best way for your business. With that, I will welcome Beth to the show.
Hey, Christy, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I am excited for this conversation today.
Me too.
I always like to kick things off and let people know how I know my guest on the show today. And we were just reminiscing before we came on. We've known each other for many years now, because it's been a bit. We met through an organization called Pepper Lane, a women's networking group, which unfortunately no longer exists. But I've met so many amazing women, especially in like the Northeast region of the US through Pepper Lane, and we still stay in touch. So I'm so glad that you are one of those people.
Yeah, me too. And gosh, Pepper Lane comes up all the time. I really miss it. And when I first joined, I think I had the opportunity to go to like 2 or 3 in-person meetings, which mostly happened in New England. But then, like many other things during COVID, we went online and got to meet people outside of that area. So yeah, it was great.
Yes, awesome. And yeah, so you and I have stayed in touch for many years. We always catch up over networking calls, just pay attention to what each other are doing, look for ways to collaborate. So I'm really excited that you were willing to come on the show today. And I've been having some other guests on who work in marketing related fields to not necessarily talk about a marketing mistake or mishap they've had, but a common one that they see with the clients that they work with. And so when you told me what you wanted to talk about today, I was like, yes, 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 we need to have this conversation, because I see this so often when business owners decide to undertake a new website project, and they might have some like branding assets and some like brand messaging that was done, and they just think, okay, I'll just get a new website up and going. And there's a lot of challenges that come into play with that. So I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to tee it up to you and ask, where would you like to start this conversation today on that topic with the clients that you work with?
Okay, so I guess maybe let's start in the beginning of the process. So I work mainly with entrepreneurs, women who work for themselves. And the first thing they tend to do is go get some branding work done. And that's fine. I think that's great. I think what happens, though, is that the branding specialist is about creating that brand. They're not necessarily about creating the marketing for that brand. And people will come to me and have these assets like, oh, look, I have a mission, vision, and values. And, this is the tone and this is the that. And it's like, okay, like they think they're walking away from branding with things that they can say already. And it's like, no, these are just the outline of how you want to form your content. And then they're like, I have to write content now. Like, we're overwhelmed. We all have all these hats and we're all like, oh, how many jobs do I have to do really to make this happen? But
right.
I feel like it's on everybody's end, right? We're always learning how much information do we have to give our clients. And I think a branding person has to tell their client, this is just the beginning. This is step one. And you're going to have to take this now and transfer it into communications with your ideal client.
Right. Yeah. It's one step in kind of that overall process. And I was so excited to talk about this with you because I see the same thing. Mm-hmm. I have a client I'm actually getting ready to work with, and they worked with a messaging specialist that was it's a lot of that brand stuff. It's a lot of that like core. I actually, I collaborated with a woman who's a foundational clarity coach, and I love, as you were talking, her diagram that she creates like came to mind. So she has this like pyramid, and at the bottom of that pyramid is foundational clarity. And that's a lot of what she helps business owners really come get their arms wrapped around, like get that clarity on what are the foundational pieces, which fall, I think, into that branding category, as you were saying, like the mission, the vision, the values, like who, what is it that I'm offering? Who is it that I'm offering it to? And what are kind of these core values that I have for my business? And so that's just step one, right? That's the first step. And then we get to the next step, and we're talking in terms of that marketing. Okay, what is the marketing strategy? And then we get up to the marketing execution, up closer to the top of the pyramid. And that's kind of the progression of that diagram that she uses. So that's what was coming to mind. And I love that you say, like, there is value in that branding process, but I think it needs to be framed in a way that's letting business owners know this is just the first step. And then what you need to do is work with, who would you say comes next in that journey?
So I think it depends. Like if somebody is then moving into the website process, I see a lot of people hire the designer first.
Yep.
Right. Which I think is totally fine. But again, the designer needs to say, you can hire me. I can give you my questionnaire and we can talk about it. But I need the content first, which is the way many designers are working now. Yes. And I think people don't realize, like, I have to show up with copy for this website. Right. And they've done the branding, and the branding person has said, okay, this is how I think you want to show up based on what you've told me. Mm-hmm. But they don't necessarily say, here's your voice, right? Yeah. And this is how you talk, and this is the language you use, and that sort of thing. So like for me, I do some messaging stuff with people where I have them fill out this really overwhelming questionnaire, but then I pull all the things out of it that they continually say, so that they have a foundation of things like, these are things you would say to a potential referral partner, to a potential client. What do you say at a networking meeting? Here are some sentences you want to make sure you're saying in your social media or blog topics, or every person gets a different thing, depending on what I pull out of their messaging. But it's like then when they're nervous or when they're not sure what to say or write or post, they have some foundational things where they can go, oh, right, this is the way I like to communicate about my business. Mm-hmm. But I think that the next step they have to do is find their voice. And I don't know. Can people do that on their own? I think they can, but I think it's so natural for us as business owners to go out and look externally at what everybody else is doing. And finding your voice is about shutting yourself in a room and really listening to your own ideas and trusting your intuition. And some people might think that that's a woo-woo thing. I don't think it's woo-woo at all. I think we really shut out, especially as women, our own voices. And we're listening to other people tell us, you should say this, you should wear that, you should do this. I mean, our whole lives are like that.
Yes.
So that's what's necessary to find your voice. And then you have to use it, right? Then it's good, I think, to find a writer or find somebody in marketing or somebody who can help you kind of shape those ideas you have about what you want to say and how do you use them strategically, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there are so many things I want to pull out of what you just said. One of them being finding your voice. I think that you are so spot on with that, in that so often we as business owners, and maybe especially as women business owners, we look externally at what other people are doing. And I say that all the time. In even marketing strategy is like, we fall into this like comparisonitis, right? It's like, well, what is everyone else doing? And I need to be in all the places everyone else is. And I need to be doing this because I saw someone else doing this. And I have a business friend who's doing this. And so it can kind of be overwhelming in that point too, on the tactical side of like taking on too many tactics because you see other people doing it. But I love that you bring up this point about even the messaging, trying to say things because that's how other people are doing it. And shutting yourself in a room and figuring out your voice, or finding someone who can be that strategic thought partner with you to help you clarify that messaging, that voice, that how are you showing up wherever you're showing up for your business, not just on a website, but in all of the channels, social, email, all of the things. So I really, really like that point, Beth, is that finding that voice is really critical. And as we were saying, when you jump from something back to another point you made earlier, you go from the branding and then you say, okay, I need a new website, and you hire the designer. Well, there's this huge gap between the branding stuff that you have and this designing of a website, which you want to look really great, but you also want it to do well for you. And in order to perform well, it needs to have the right words on it so that it's targeting those ideal clients you want to attract and convert. And so that's kind of that big gap that we're talking about.
Yep. Yep. And I think for many people, they're like, oh, I can write my own copy. I can use ChatGPT. I can use AI. And not that they can't, but, the first tricky thing is you certainly can't cut and paste from ChatGPT, because then you can't copyright your website.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you can, but legally you really shouldn't do that. So, I think people think they're going to go into a ChatGPT and it's going to spit out this content to them, and they're just going to hand it to their designer, but it doesn't have your voice. It's not, there's no brevity to it, no crispness to the content. There's just no, it's winging it. ChatGPT doesn't know you in the way that you are going to think that it might know you. But
yeah.
And I know, like, you work with a really great system, right, called Cast Magic. So when people are putting things in there, it's only working with their stuff. And I think that's so great, because, if we're trying to avoid saying all the things that other people are saying, when you're using GPT, all it's collecting for you is things that other people are saying.
Yes.
So you then still have to go in and spend time editing that, or updating it, or curating it to match your voice and your perspective. And so I think they just lose all sense of how much time it takes, the strategy required, and the thought process into really creating good copy for your website.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to hone in on this point here, Beth, because this is something that you and I are both on the same page about. And I think, again, it is missed a lot of times with business owners, with the nuances of, because marketing it's huge and it's overwhelming and it's easy to miss things and think, oh, well, I'll just go to ChatGPT and do this thing. It cannot know your voice and your personality, that personality of your business that you're trying to convey. It doesn't know you as a person. It doesn't know the nuances of what makes you you and what makes your ideal clients. And that's where those experts really come in, is to bridge all these pieces together. And I'm a huge proponent of AI. However, I think there's a time and a place, and there's certain things you use it for and certain things you don't. And I would definitely say that website copy is one of those things, because it is so, I think it really takes an expert in the messaging and copywriting space and website copywriting to really know, how do we format this? How do we break up the text so we just don't have walls of paragraphs, right? Because nobody wants to come to a website and look at that. Like, there's so much nuance to website copywriting, especially.
Yes, I agree. And I think that that's where people get stuck too, is that, so first I want to back up for a second. You can't expect any sort of AI, ChatGPT, or anything like that to know your voice if you don't know your voice. It's not going to create it for you, right? You have to be able to put content in that already has some of your tone and the words that you would use and that sort of thing. So that's the first thing. But I find many people will come to me and they'll be like, but I want this on the homepage, and I want that on the homepage, and I want this on the homepage. And if people show up and you have a novella there, or like you said, a big block of content, people are out. They are out. They're not investing that much into you in your homepage. I am sorry for anybody who thought differently, but like, I was just on a call this morning with somebody saying that, you have 3 seconds. That hero section at the top of your homepage better hit the mark. Otherwise, people will be confused and they're not sure, and they're going to go someplace else before they invest in reading more in your page. On your homepage. So the novella thing, I think people are so afraid of taking out those things that sometimes are sentences they love. Like in the creative writing world, it's called kill your darlings, right? Where you take out those statements that you just adore, but maybe aren't going to be that important to the reader. This is the same thing. You're building curiosity with your homepage content. You're not giving them everything. You're not cutting open a vein on that page. And so somebody needs to help you with that, make those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's so again, I think the big points are it's the voice, it's the personality. Like you need an expert to help you. Maybe you could do it on your own, but maybe you really need a guide to really lead you on that path to say, okay, how are we communicating about our business and can making those genuine connections with those ideal clients. And then, yeah, that formatting and really knowing best practices of different types of copy and what is typical, what is going to get someone to stay on your homepage and take a next action, what is going to get someone to scroll down, what is going to get someone to hopefully eventually fill out a form on your website to download something or book a call or whatever the thing is. But there's a whole journey and there's a whole process in that. And I think the messaging just plays such a key role in it.
Yeah. I also think that people many times right away, they're like, oh, I'm starting a business, I need a website. And it's like, do you need it right this minute? Because have you worked with a client yet to know if that's your right client or not? Just to test it out. You've had all this branding done and you think you know who that client is, but until you've worked with a handful of them, and then people are like, well, I don't have a website, so I can't go on social media. And it's like, no, you need to go on social media because you need to be connecting with people. You need to start talking about some stuff. So maybe you do need to connect with somebody in marketing who can help you decide, what do I say? I don't really have a solid business yet officially. I haven't worked with any clients and I don't have a website, but I want to start to build the presence because people tend to think I have a website. People are going to come to it. My website's up. They launched my website today.
Yep.
How do people
if you build it, they will come. That's not how it works.
How do people, I ask people all the time, how are you sending people to your website? Oh, I tell them about it in my networking groups. 12 people? Is that?
Yeah. Right.
Like, because people don't know, they don't realize. And it's like, you have to go out now and send people to the website through your blog, through your emails, your social media, and all that stuff. So there's that piece of it too. There's so many pieces to it.
Yes, I totally agree with you. The majority of the clients I work with are established. They pretty much know their offers and who their ideal clients are. I really love working with those business owners, but sometimes I do get newer business owners, and I am always very careful to really determine if it makes sense for them to work with me or not. Sometimes I send them to that clarity coach that I mentioned earlier first, because I'm like, if you don't know some of these basic foundations, we really can't build a marketing plan on it. But I have worked with some of them who have that clarity and they're like, okay, well, what about a website and what about, social and what do I do? And you're so right, Beth, not everybody needs a website right out of the gate. Or if you really feel like you do need a place to send people to, just build a simple one-page landing page that just says who you are and what you do. And don't make it more complex than that, because there's so much that's going to change as you work with clients and get clear on who is ideal, who is not ideal, and really shift your messaging to be geared towards those clients you want more of.
Right. Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much ground we've covered on the website stuff. So making sure that we're not just jumping from branding to website design, really getting clear on the messaging in that, finding your voice in your, I always just come back to the word authenticity. I'm big on that. I'm curious, Beth, what would you say? And do you have something as part of your process? If someone is struggling with that, I really don't know the voice and the personality of my business. How would you recommend they work through that?
Yeah, things that people don't like to hear, journaling. Why do I have this business? Why do I do this work? How do I think I help people? Just to really think about and get your answers, right? Not somebody else's answers. Your family is there to pat you on the back, but they're not, going to critique you and give you the truth about it. But I think just really spending time getting to know yourself. I also have a resource where it's 3 of the questions off of my questionnaire that people can really look at and kind of flesh out and add details and just keep building on it to get clearer on the answers to those questions. And you just got to keep digging. And here's the thing. It's always changing.
Yes.
And I feel like when you say that to people, they want to have a breakdown, right? But we all know that you get your website up there and you're like, oh, the investment's done. I put the time in. Guess what? If you're growing your business correctly, 2 to 3 years, you're going to want to be revamping that site because you're going to change to adapt to your clients, to adapt to any education you get or new ideas that come to you. That's why you went into business in the first place.
Yeah.
So
changes in the marketplace, like AI and whatever else comes our way. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up that point, Beth, because I say that all the time about marketing as a whole. Like, and I totally get it. You're exactly right. I think business owners are like, I just want to do it and be done. But that, like, I think that mentality really needs to shift about all areas of marketing, because there really is not a set it and forget it forever kind of thing. There are things you can set up and let them run for, maybe 6 months to a year. But you're always going to have to be, you should be looking at the data, what's working, what's not, where do we shift, where do we maybe let go of things that aren't working, where do we double down on other things that are working. And it goes for, like you said, it goes for the messaging on your website. I think it goes for pretty much everything in marketing.
Yeah, so true. It's just always going to be changing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where, again, I think it can be frustrating to business owners but it's, again, I think it's a mindset thing. You have to look at it as an iterative process. I was just having this conversation with a client where it's like, I've been working with them for a while now. And it's like, we've tried a bunch of things. And I think that any savvy business owner needs to go into marketing as a whole and think of it as, we're going to try out some things and we're going to see what works and we're going to measure it and we're going to pivot and we're going to change and it's just going to be this ever evolving process to figure out and fine tune what works and what doesn't, and how can we get better results.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, it seems so heavy, and really that would, to business owners, don't take yourselves too seriously. Like, it's light and you are going to make changes, and you know what? You're even going to make tweaks in between. Like, your website will be up and somebody will mention something to you and you'll think, oh, maybe that one thing wasn't so clear to somebody. Let me go in and change that on my about page or my services page or something. And, you'll get a little more relaxed. There'll be a flow to it, right? It won't be like the very first time is like such a traumatic time.
Right. Yeah. And I think of it, I always like to joke, my mission is to make business owners love marketing as much as I do. I know that's not realistic, but I do think that there is a level of approaching your marketing like you would, I don't know, I think about, like, my husband loves playing golf, right? And like, people who like golf are always working on their golf game, right?
Yes.
It's like, it's a never ending, like, you keep showing up, you keep putting in the reps. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you don't. Like, I think that the mentality about marketing needs to be similar. And if golf isn't your thing, that's fine. But what is something that you do like to continually show up at and get a little bit better and learn something new? Because I think that when you have that same approach to marketing, it ends up being more fun, to your point.
Yeah.
Having fun with it.
Yeah, just have fun with it. And some things are going to hit and some things aren't, and everybody is having the same challenge.
Yes, that's true. You're not alone. Whatever you're struggling with, you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Beth, as we get ready to wrap up, I feel like we covered a lot of great ground. You gave lots of valuable takeaways for listeners. Is there any last lesson learned?
Any last lesson learned? I guess, one of the things for me, since we're talking about website copy, is when you're working with different people, I'll say 2 quick things. Make sure that they're connected. When I get a client, if they've had a branding person, I ask to see the brand assets. If they're working with a designer, I say, hey, let me know who they are. I'm going to connect with them. I want to hear what their vision is, so that everybody is working to the same goal for you. Mm-hmm. And that's important, because otherwise you're the project manager and it's people, it's another stressful situation.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing is, it's an investment. All these things are an investment, and maybe you go into it not knowing. Some people offer, shorter services. Like, where do you need the priority? Do you need a full branding thing? Maybe you do. But if you don't, maybe you need the copywriter, or maybe you need a couple of consulting sessions with a writer, or this, if maybe you're kind of handy on your website and maybe you need a consulting session with the website person. But think about it, because it's so important to get some knowledge and experience from each of those people.
Yes.
But you don't necessarily have to go crazy on all three.
Yes. Yes. And actually, not that I want to like shamelessly plug myself and my services, but I just posted a video and a blog about like around when you don't know where to invest in your marketing, starting with a strategist or a consultant who has a good picture of all of the moving pieces can be a really good first step, because so often I see business owners go down this path of investing in this big fancy new website, and to all the points that we just made in this conversation, it ends up missing the mark because there weren't these other things done first or in conjunction with it. So they have this bright, flashy new website, but it's not working for them.
Right.
And so I think sometimes it's that like, okay, and because marketing is so overwhelming, it can be hard to know as small business owners, right? Budgets are limited. And so it can be hard to know, where do I start and how do I prioritize when I can't, invest tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in my marketing right now. So what's going to have the biggest return on investment for me in the short term? And how can I maybe plan for those other investments later on?
Right.
So yeah, that can be tricky, but well, Beth, thank you so much. You offered some really great insights, very, very valuable lessons for listeners. Very lastly, I want to give you the chance. How can people learn more about you, your services? Maybe is that a freebie that you mentioned earlier, those questions?
Yep. And you can get that on my website. My website is that'saspade.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, so you can find me and connect with me in all those places.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Beth, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was really great.
Awesome.